Drugs like meth and fentanyl are a real problem here in Omaha. According to the DEA, seizures are up and most of it comes to the Midwest from Mexico. 3 News Now investigative reporter Jeff Van Sant has the story.
In the early 1990s and early 2000s, meth was king here in the Midwest, especially in small farming communities where needed chemicals were easy to come by. But then production moved to Mexico after a massive crackdown by authorities here in the U.S. The result, cheaper and more potent meth on our streets.
Omaha 18 from pad 6 fear, runway 36, make a Bay departure, 130.15, good for takeoff.
3 News Now has taken you on a journey to the southwest border with Mexico. Looking at the drug war, the fight against smugglers bringing in untold amounts of meth, cocaine, marijuana to our streets.
We're talking tens of thousands of people are dying every year from cartel violence. If that's not a war, I don't know what is.
That war is raging across the United States.
Get out in the hallway right now!
And right here in Omaha, like so many other cities, drugs have their victims.
It's a nightmare. Because, you know, you're fine 1 second and then next thing you know, you lose everything. Like, I've burnt so many bridges with my family and, you know, my friends.
Tyler got addicted to cocaine.
The first time I took it, it was, I got sick. And then, you know, I wanted that rush, you know. And so I just kept doing it and doing it and doing it.
His entire life has been affected by drugs. He suffers from cerebral palsy and scoliosis. His mother was a drug addict.
When I was younger, like in my early teens, I was always in that why me aspect. You know, like, what did I do to deserve this?
Because we used to get them from Pettit's Pastry a lot when I was a kid.
He lives at Open Door Mission, trying to turn his life around, just like his friend Joshua. He's originally from California. He started out on prescription pills, then moved to heroin.
At first, I mean, it was bliss. It was a good thing, you know, because I mean, it was cheaper than pills, and it kept me going on an everyday basis. But I mean, within such a short period of time, I lost everything. Lost all my friends, my family, lost my sense of credibility. I mean, just everything.
His addiction is what brought him here to the Midwest. He got caught trying to smuggle meth from California into this area.
Selling drugs to get by, just to support a habit. I mean, never really made much off it other than just enough drugs to get high and get the next batch.
Drugs like meth have been around since the 90s. Small communities in Nebraska like Beatrice were hit hard.
One of the things we were seeing was high school kids, young adults who otherwise hadn't been in the drug world would suddenly experimenting with meth and getting methamphetamines and getting addicted.
Small communities like Beatrice were perfect breeding grounds for meth labs.
Back in the late 90s, early 2000s, domestic production of methamphetamine was a huge problem, especially here in the Midwest. You have all the farming communities.
One of the things we found was it was everywhere. And we literally could put out as many investigators as we could afford and buy as much meth from drug dealers as we could because it was everywhere.
Beatrice Police Chief Bruce Lang led the fight against meth in his town. Eventually, drug enforcement got tougher across the U.S. Production tapered off in the 2000s, but not without consequences.
The Midwest was dealing with 8,000 small toxic labs a year to now the mega labs that are going down in Mexico that are producing thousands of kilos, developing a higher, purer, more potent product than any domestic lab here could have ever fathomed producing. I have 453 dosage units out of this right here.
Stopping the flow is never ending.
You kind of put it in perspective. Last year we seized, just the DEA here in Omaha seized 250 pounds of meth, which is a lot of methamphetamine for this region. Years prior, we seized 80 pounds. If you look at the geography of, let's say, Omaha, you have I-29 running north and south, and I-80 running, major pipeline running east and west. Omaha sits right at the crosshairs of those two interstates.
On any given day, Interstate 80 here is a pipeline for criminal activity. We've seen 20-year-old college students that are trying to make a little extra cash. We've also seen the 75-year-old retired couple that they're very good at it because they're not the type that you would suspect of being involved in that type of thing.
While the drug war rages, so does the fight to help addicts. That brings us back to Tyler.
If I don't have something to do, I'll go nuts.
And Joshua.
The little brother I never wanted.
That's my bodyguard.
They're trying to return to normal life, helped by those around them at Open Door Mission.
I'm pretty positive that I'm going to be able to stay with it this time. I mean, for me, like I've been wanting to get clean for 3 or 4 years now, you know, if not longer. It's just the sickness, it's getting over that. And, you know, now that I'm over it, it's time to just, you know, stick with it, stay clean.
I have the greatest group of friends, and I'm so glad I'm here. I've actually decided to stay here because they have apartments upstairs you can rent, so I've decided to stay here and, you know, continue to use the support system that I've built up.
Two guys who are survivors. They're reconnecting with family and friends, rebuilding their lives. As for the drug war, it's never ending. Law enforcement are doing their part, but say continued education in our schools or parents teaching their kids about the dangers of drugs are great tools in the arsenal. But at the end of the day, the United States has a nasty habit, an insatiable appetite for drugs.
The only way we win this is we got to have people stop wanting it.
According to the CDC, since 1999, more than 750,000 people have died from a drug overdose. Jeff Van Sant, 3 News Now.